Can you spotlight two people?
I don't think so. Not like me. No.
No.
And the answer is
No.
Hey everybody, we're super excited to show you 3 things that you really need to know about Teams that'll knock your socks off. First, we're going to talk about spotlighting, about how you can make the person who's presenting always the person that's viewable. We're going to talk about how you can send the audio from your computer, so that way if you're showing a video through Teams session, they can hear what you're showing. And lastly, we're going to talk about as people are meeting, what kind of permissions you can do, like auto muting and things like that. These are all things I know that you're probably looking for and want to have. So let's tune in.
Okay, so first we are going to talk about attendees, presenters, guests, and participants. So
That sounds super similar.
4 different things, and they're all a little different. So first we're going to talk about participants, because participants is the broad term for basically someone who is in a meeting. You are just, if you are a participant, you are in the meeting and you are present. Now, then it starts getting a little bit more confusing. So guests, if you have already noticed, they show up a little different than everyone else in the meeting. And what I mean by that is at the end of their name, it will show the word guests. And it will always put that there. And that is meaning that that's somebody who is not a part of your organization. They're coming from outside of your organization. And we're going to show what that looks like as well in just a few minutes. And the next one that I want to talk about is called attendees. So attendees are people who are in the meeting, but they don't have the same access as somebody who is a presenter or an organizer.
Could an attendee be somebody in your organization?
It can be somebody in your organization. You can make anyone an attendee. So when I mean anyone, I mean anyone. You could boot the organizer to an attendee if you want to.
But, I want to see that.
Yeah. But an attendee basically just has some restrictions on them. You can make them mute for the entire meeting and make sure that they cannot unmute. You can also make sure that they don't show their video. So things like that in like a classroom setting or maybe a training session that you don't want them to be seen or heard, but you just want the presenter to show everything that they have. That's where you would use that attendee feature and make sure that they don't have as many access points as other people. So when it comes to a presenter, which is the 4th thing that we're going to talk about, a presenter has basically all of the abilities inside a meeting as the organizer does, except the mute option of all of the attendees and stuff like that. So what the presenter can do is they can obviously present their video, they can share their screen, they can even make people attendees just like an organizer can. They can always unmute themselves when they'd like. They can look at the chat, look at the notes, all of that stuff. So if you want somebody to be a presenter, you want them to have basically full access to the meeting, just like an organizer.
It sounds like almost like they're trying to really bring some of that webinar feature and functionality that you're seeing in Zoom into just traditional meetings in Teams. Am I kind of hearing that right?
Yes, totally. So what we're going to show you now is how to create a meeting in Teams using these features and how you can set them up before you even start the meeting. Now, we've had a lot of questions about this, and what if I don't want people to join with audio, and stuff like that, which are all great questions. And this will definitely answer that. There is a way. It is a little bit tricky. I wish it was a little bit easier than this, if I'm being honest, but this is the way that you can do it at the moment. Now, I'm sure some people might be watching this video a few months down the line and they have changed it.
Right.
So at this moment, this is how you can change the settings of a presenter or an attendee and make people attendees before they even enter into the meeting. So let's get started.
Okay, so as you can see here, here's my calendar inside Teams. I'm connected here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. I could do the same thing by creating a new meeting here. I'm just going to click in this space. I'm going to go ahead and do a new meeting. And we're going to do the classic. We're going to wax the cat.
I'm going to wax that cat.
And I'm going to leave it for 1 o'clock. Okay. Now, I'm not going to put a required attendee in here. And I want to show you something for why that's the case. Now, traditionally, when I go to do a Teams meeting, none of the information shows up until I hit save, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go ahead and hit save here. Give it a second. We'll wait. And then I'll click on it. You look at it, there's nothing in here.
Mm-hmm.
There's no details. There's no notes. And that's really because we don't have an attendee added. And you might say, oh, well, of course, Bobby, that's kind of silly. What? I would expect that. Well, sometimes people, what I've seen in the forums, what they'll try to do is they're kind of nervous about making this large-scale meeting that they want to do. So they want to go ahead and get all the settings correct before they put the people in here to invite them. These settings that you need to do won't show up until you invite at least one person.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then maybe you might want to do is just invite Kaylee, right? So I'm going to just invite Kaylee here. And now I'm going to hit save and send update. And I'm going to wait a second. And you see now it's kind of spinning down here.
Mm-hmm.
Now it says Bobby. And when I click on it now, it has the Teams information in there.
Exactly.
And notice now I have scheduled assistant, I have meeting notes, and the whiteboard.
Mm-hmm. As well as meeting options.
As well as meeting options.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen people post in the forums where they're like, I don't have meeting options, it's missing. And they're like, well, you just made a meeting and you probably didn't invite anybody because you're trying to do what I was doing originally when I was trying to mess with this some time ago. And I was like, why isn't the meeting option showing up? And it's because you're trying to be savvier, right? You're trying to be savvier so that you don't accidentally not get your meeting options right. So what you want to do in that scenario is just invite one person in the meeting that maybe you trust, and then you can go ahead and click the meeting options here. And when you do that, what that's going to do is it's going to bring you to this website, which is opening up as we speak over here. Let me drag it over so you can see it.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have these options here. Do you want me to walk through them? You want to walk through them?
Yeah, let's walk through them together. And the reason that he's asking me this is because I'm going to show you how this works inside the meeting. These are the exact same things that are inside the meeting.
So we drop this list down, and here's what you have. So this is who can bypass the lobby. So either everyone, people in the organization that are trusted in the organizations and guests, or people in the organizations and guests, or only me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of good. What's nice is if you've added people to be participants in the meeting, if you're setting it up, what you can kind of do is you can pick like scenarios where you would have people that are not going to be guests and how you want them to handle. In this situation,
right,
we're just going to say, now always let callers bypass the lobby. So what that means is if someone's phoning in, you don't want them necessarily to sit in the lobby because they're not going to see anything. All they're doing is just listening because
it'll be a little confusing if they're sitting.
And this option is also there because we have voice conferencing. Announcing when the callers join or leave. This only does this for the people on the phone. So people sometimes I've seen kind of go, well, why isn't it doing it when I'm joining or leaving through the computer? This only has to deal with the actual phone. Now this is really a powerful option here. Everyone, who can present, and right by default it's set to everyone. But you could say people in the organization, or you can actually specify some specific people, or you can say only me. Now, just because these are the options I picked doesn't mean later on I can't change them.
Correct.
So, that's kind of cool. So we'll say only me for the moment. And then you say allow attendees to unmute. So I can say no here, and what that means is I'll only be the presenter, and when the people join in, they will be muted, and they will not have the ability to unmute themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you can kind of get that webinar look and feel. Now, I do have the capability when we're ready for the appropriate time to do questions and answers, you can turn that feature off on the fly. So now you're starting to see a little bit more, right, of some of those options that you can do with a traditional webinar inside Zoom that was missing in Teams, but
Yeah.
not so much now. So these are some pretty cool features that I highly suggest you play with.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to hit save on that, and now it's done. So now what that has done is that has applied these options here to that meeting here.
Mm-hmm.
And so then as the meeting starts to happen, which Kaylee will kind of demonstrate, those then come into play.
Mm-hmm. So when you first create a meeting and you do not change any options in the meeting, just like how we were changing options a little bit ago, if you don't change any of those options and you add those attendees and save the meeting, when they enter into this meeting, they will be presenters and they will have that access to share their screen, share their video, and all of that. So I can't stress this enough. When you are adding them as an attendee, they are also a presenter unless you change the settings and the options, just like we did. So
Now,
just remember that.
Now, it's also important to remember, too, that as admins in the team system, you can go in and kind of configure what guests specifically can do. So you can kind of override this.
But just for guests.
Right. For like, let's say that you have it set up so that guests do have that capability. These settings now apply. So this is where you can kind of control that so that if you have allowed guests to present inside your team's admin center, now you have control over the individual meeting to do that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Does that
Totally.
okay.
Yeah. And the reason that I'm laying this out for you guys is because it can be really confusing just because they use the name attendees, but it is different in certain parts of how you create the meeting, which is really strange. But I promise that if you practice this and you watch this video a couple times, you will get it and you can use it to your advantage. So I'm going to
guarantee they're going to change it. I know they're going to change the nomenclature.
Yeah. Well, because they should call attendees when you're creating a meeting. It should say add a participant. Right. They shouldn't label it an attendee because that's a different title and a different option. So it's just kind of weird. But right here, okay, so right now I am the organizer and Bobby is a presenter. And I'm going to show you how to change him to an attendee. Now, this is the option that you can use to your advantage when muting and unmuting him and giving him access or less access. So what you're going to do is you're going to right click on the person that you want to change. And you can also click these three dots right here for it. But for simple reasons, I like to right click. And you can change it to make an attendee. Now, this will affect who can share content. It's going to let you know what this is going to change about Bobby's settings. And then you're going to click change. Now, you see how it changes it.
Humanity.
I know. I just gave you less access. I said, go on mute, sucker. So as you can see, he is now listed under the attendees bar, and you can clearly tell that there is one attendee, and that is him. Now, this gives you access to also make him a presenter again. So there is no like, oh no, I made him a attendee and he's going to have this access for the rest of the meeting and I don't know what to do. No, you can always change him back to a presenter. It's going to be okay. Don't cry. So the way that you would make his settings change, just like Bobby did before the meeting even started, is you would go up to the very top of this, right next to where it says participants, and you're going to click the three dots. This has those options that Bobby had at the beginning of the meeting, which is don't allow attendees to unmute, make permissions, and download the attendance list, which he actually didn't have before because obviously you didn't know who was going to attend before. So Manage permissions, when you click on that, it is going to pull up that same screen
Right.
that Bobby had, okay? And it's pulling up on another screen, but obviously I don't have to show you guys that again because it's the exact same screen that we saw before, okay? So this is just an easy click away to not allow attendees to unmute, which is really cool. So when I click that, it's going to let you know what it's doing, and you say don't allow. And that then shows this icon. If you can see it, it's a little different than the regular muted icon. It shows like a little circle with a line through it saying they can't ever unmute themselves, you know? So that's how you know that you did it right and they are not able to unmute. And you can always go back to those three dots at the top and click allow attendees to unmute. And that puts it right back to how it was at the start of the meeting. So
is that the way that you would recommend, like if you wanted someone to speak?
no. So if I wanted somebody to speak and I still didn't want all of the other attendees to have the option to speak, what I would do is change their permission, probably, if you're okay with that, to a presenter, and that would then give them the access to speak.
Let me just pause there for just a second. For those of you that are a little newer to Zoom, Zoom kind of breaks it into two different things. You kind of have the webinar feature, right? And then you have the actual meeting option. And those are two different things. Those are two different actually services you pay for Zoom. Right. So, and that's a kind of a big deal. Whereas now what Teams is starting to do is they're starting to offer a lot of that webinar feature and functionality into their already existing Teams solution that you're paying for.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. So, man, that is, you know, they're encroaching.
Yeah.
Even more. And I think it's going to continue on. And I think they're going to make Teams be totally functional, either in a webinar type functionality to where you can really control who can speak and who can't. And then also, if you want to, put in a regular Teams organizational free-for-all, you know, where you just trust everyone and anyone and everyone can share because you're wanting that level of collaboration. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, it is very interesting. And there's so much that you can do, again, with unmuting people and muting them and changing their permissions, and you can get it exactly how you want even before the meeting starts, as well as changing it fluidly throughout the meeting, which is just super fun and super flexible, and I really like it. The next thing we're going to talk about also has to do with that flexibility, and as well as just taking another step to making your meeting very professional and super cool, which is the spotlight feature. So do you want to talk about that and explain a little bit more of what that means?
Yep. Okay, Kaylee, can you see my screen?
I can.
Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to admit Santa Claus in here.
Santa Claus.
You know, and I'm going to let him in. And as you can see how it says, kind of like what Kaylee said, it shows up as a guest. Okay, because the participation settings that we had in this meeting, we set it up to where anyone could present. So what that tells Teams is anybody that joins in, if you don't have it set up in your Teams admin center that guests do not have share permissions and those other things, then they can. And we have it set that way because we do a lot of meetings with guests and other things like that. So if we have them invited, we want them to have that capability. So that's the reason why this showed up this way. So now what we're going to do is we're going to show Kaylee as a spotlight. So Kaylee is doing the talking. Let's just imagine there were, 20 or 30 other people here. Okay. And in this situation, like we would do, we could make this person an attendee, right? But in this case, what we're going to do is I'm going to make Kaylee the spotlight because I want Kaylee always to be the front, and I don't want it shared. See how it is between Santa Claus and her?
Yep.
So if I hit spotlight on her, now Santa Claus disappears down here to the bottom. And she's the spotlight. Also notice that it has this icon that's different right next to her. It has a little picture with a star because she's the star.
I'm a star.
She's a star. And if we kept adding more people, they would start showing up down here in the bottom, but she would always be, no matter who's talking, the focus of that, which is pretty nice.
Really
And
nice.
and I can come over here and let's just go ahead and make him attendee.
Mm-hmm.
So he still drops down here at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
He could show his video if he wanted to. He doesn't have to. Maybe he doesn't want to show what's happening in the North Pole because he wants it to be a surprise. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a surprise for Christmas.
Right. So, and then if I want to turn it off, I just come in here and say stop spotlighting.
Yes.
And Kaylee can do that herself because she has a
Yes.
presentation option. So do you want to do it yourself?
Yes. So I would just come and do the same exact thing, but mine just says exit spotlight.
And then boom.
Yeah. And it lets me know at the top of my screen that I'm no longer spotlighted and I'm no longer special.
Right. And so so just to kind of go back to the webinar feature and functionality between Zoom is like with Zoom, you can kind of control, okay, maybe I don't want everybody to be shown, right? In the webinar feature, I only want the presenters to be displayed. You can't quite do that here in this scenario, but you're much closer to that target, right? So now I can control who speaks, who doesn't, who can present, who can talk. I can't turn off the video in the bottom there, but I can make it to where Kaylee or whoever I want is going to be the person that's going to be on the main screen there.
Right. Can you spotlight 2 people?
I don't think so. Not like me. No. And the answer is
no.
I never tried.
We both gasped.
Like, what? No. So there's your answer. Good question.
Oh, that's so funny. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to talk about our last topic for this video, which is the shared audio feature. When I'm sharing my screen with a meeting and the people in the meeting, I have the option to also share the audio coming from my computer, which is
Why would that matter?
awesome. Because
why does that matter?
When I am sharing like a video, music or anything like that with a shared group of people, it would really suck to share that whole entire video without any audio coming to them. So all they're seeing is just the video and they can't hear anything. But when I click on that feature of sharing my audio, that then allows them to see the video that I'm sharing as well as listen to what is coming through on my screen, which is super cool. And that is a feature that I believe they added this year. So let's see if I can share my screen. Okay, I am sharing my screen in both Teams and both Zooms. So I'm going to do this quickly before the whole world blows up. So this little icon right here says include system audio. This is where you would click it and share the audio that is coming from your computer.
You can do it before you start sharing. Did you know that?
Stop.
Yeah, you can do that too.
But let me see.
Yeah, so stop presenting and go to do it again, and you'll see it in the top left corner underneath the sharing screen. So when you hit share, hit the share icon. Top left.
Include computer audio. Would you look at that? Okay, so you can
I didn't know that you could do that after you joined, though.
Wow. Okay, so I knew the one that you didn't, and you knew the one that I didn't.
That's interesting. And what's funny is in Zoom, I don't think you can. So I think in Zoom, if you've already joined, you got to stop presenting and represent again in order for you to have that option.
I actually do think you're correct on that. Yeah, there is a little check marks that you'll have to click, and then you start sharing your screen with that computer sound on. So yeah, so this is where you would include the computer sound before you even start presenting. And if you don't want it to be shared until later on while you're presenting, then you can do it the way that I said first.
Yeah, that's cool. I didn't know that, and that's kind of nice because maybe you have like your Outlook open and stuff while you're doing the presenting, and you only want to expose yourself to that additional notifications or alarms, or maybe you have a VoIP phone system on your computer and you don't want the soft phone like ringing in everybody's ear as you're doing the presentation.
Yes.
You can then at that point click it, turn it on, and then turn it off. That's kind of cool.
Correct. Yeah.
Did not know that.
Super, super cool, and a great feature to use for anyone who is trying to share a video or presentation with audio to their entire team, which I'm sure would happen a lot. So
Yeah.
you definitely
Yeah,
want to check out that feature.
I've used it numerous times, PowerPoints that might have audio in it,
Hmm.
um, or YouTube videos that have relevant content and security and things like that where I'm showing it. I've done that too. So that wraps it up. I think that pretty much covers all those topics in good detail. Like I said before, some of these things have been added. I'm not exactly sure when this year. So what I'm really curious is if you happen to know exactly when these were added, right?
Hmm.
And then also if you knew before you watched this video, I'm really curious
Yes.
because a lot of these features that we've kind of picked, we've just kind of discovered as we've been moving around and just have really fell in love with them. So we feel like everybody really needs to know these, and we're just curious how many other people know it.
Yes.
So let us know in the comments, please.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Hey, thanks so much for watching our video. Make sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed the video and subscribe to our channel for more content. Bye.